Hello there, this is Ron Wills coming back at you with yet another video. The game was in the culture. You know what, the other day I was talking with a young brother, right? And this young brother, he was blessed to be around some old school players, like some real true to the game pimp types who schooled him on a whole lot, right? And we were talking about it, and I was talking about how, I learned the game growing up. And I've already talked about, I've done a couple videos talking about how Ron Wills learned the game. But overall, though, and like I said, I learned a lot from women, right? But some basic fundamentals I just learned from men. The basic fundamentals, some basic stuff I just talk about. Which I used to think was just some basic stuff until, when I, really started getting into this whole relationship thing. I was like, apparently it's not. I don't know. Maybe, I know people who grew up in D.C. like to think we're the center of the world and shit, but I thought like some of the stuff was universal, because I know at least in that area, people were learning this. And then I talked with some older cats from maybe Chicago, L.A., Detroit, and it really was some basic stuff. But I think honestly what happened is integration. And I think what happened was, when we used to have black communities, black neighborhoods, used to be in a neighborhood. If somebody walked through that neighborhood, everybody would know it right away, and they would get challenged. Some places you had that, so you had actual communities and stuff. You had people looking out and everything. Back then where, you did something wrong, every adult in the neighborhood would take a whack at you, then you get home. Yeah, but we ain't have any problems. I remember this one street I grew up on, right? There was some young people joyriding. There was some cats came out the house with guns blazing and chased those dudes away. It was what it was. But a lot of the game, a lot of stuff I talk about, it was stuff not so much, you kind of learned it, but it wasn't formal. It was like you watched the older men in your community and how they interacted with women, right? That was one thing. Or you go to the barbershop and, they talk that shit in there, but you get a lot of good, just life advice in there. Or you had, like I always remember when me and my boy were 15, right? Or we might have been 16, thinking about it now. Whatever the case, we were still teenagers, and I remember our older brother, and this brother, he was a blue-collar cat, right? He was a contractor, and that's how we actually knew him, because he did some work for my boy's father, right? And, we hanging out with him, and he wasn't on some, like, he had some young people with him, so he knew, he started schooling us. He told us what love was, something that stuck with me. Because one thing, older men, it was just natural for older men to mentor younger men. I talked about that in one video where I learned how to ride a bike, because, me and my mother and sister were living like in this like little small apartment attached to this bigger house. Basically an in-law suite or something, former in-law suite, right? And like the owner, this dude come out. And I told this story before, but it's one of those ones I'll always treasure it, right? This dude came out in a suit, I remember his name, Mr. Green, rest his soul. But that dude came out, so I was trying to ride a bike, and that dude came in a full suit now. Full suit, shine, he had some gaiters on, some fly ass shoes. He was fly, he was clean. That dude picked me up by the neck and said, "Pedal boy," and ran in a full sprint beside me while I was getting that bike down, And that's how we learn stuff. We did it, and it was in the culture how we transmitted it and stuff. Sometimes, the old elders or older dudes, sometimes on the corner, they tell you some stuff. Or sometimes the best way though is if you just sit there and just listen to them talk. That was the best way, because they knew you were there, so they were mindful of what they said. That was the best way to kind of watch them, or watch how they holler. Because I even remember back when I was like 12 or something, it was this older player in the neighborhood, 18-year-old. That dude was like telling us some stuff. He even like smashed this woman. He actually, or young girl really, and really he said, "All right, y'all come around to the side. I'm gonna crack the shades a little bit, let y'all see what I'm doing. All right." But that's how it was, and it was just in the culture. Everything we did was geared towards that whole game. Like staying in shape and all of that. It wasn't a question you needed a dating coach to tell you. More, we just went outside and stuff. It's one of those things. It's like when the lights come on, you just knew to bring your ass home. But we stayed in better shape, so that was that check. We knew we always had to look fly. We always had to be clean. Check. Always had to, you had to at least be able to defend yourself in a fight, so you had to have a decent knuckle game. Check. And you had to be able to talk to a woman. There was no ifs, ands, and buts. It was like, it ain't had to be any fly shit, but you need to be able to hold an intelligent conversation with some woman, or you straight up, like some dudes, they even take you to the side, tell you what to do. And in some cases, if they saw that that's one thing older guys did in some hoods. And I talked to some players from Chicago and stuff, and they did that there too. And sometimes if they saw the older cats, like the older kids or cats, anybody, they saw you was somebody who was kind of shy with women or something like that, they go find somebody. They'll hook your ass up. The dudes will hook you up. They find somebody, usually a woman who might be a little easy, probably. I mean, let's just keep it real. But they will find somebody and say, "Hold up, man. Y'all need to go ahead and talk to her, man." Sometimes they'll talk to the woman first. They'll be like, "Hold up, man. You cool. Why don't you, give him a chance. Give him a holler. If he, because he kind of shy, he kind of quiet. Just sit there and talk to him." And sometimes, like I said about learning from older women, I used to have older women like take me to the side sometime and just talk, because it was like it was just there. It was more of a community. I think what's happened now, well, one, honestly, and I've never really broached this subject, but the rise of single parent households. You have too many women who, they think they can raise, two things. One, they think they can raise a boy to manhood, but they don't really, a lot of times they don't tell, most of them, some of them do, but most of them don't tell their sons the real deal about interactions with women. Most of the time they paint a pedestal and, they don't say anything. It's like, oh, all these women, they deserve to be treated right and all of that. And none would do anything scandalous. They won't be like your father who was a dog or something. They'll talk down to men, talk down to women. Of course, those same single mothers will get pissed off when, their son brings home somehow. And then wonder why. It was like you didn't want him. That's one thing I give my mother and the women in my family. They even saw me, especially my grandmother. She even saw me. If she even suspected that I talked to some skank in the neighborhood, she pulled me up. I mean, she straight up called some little girls ugly and skanky. Straight up. She was like, "Baby, you don't want to mess with her." She was straight up. But a lot of dudes weren't like that. And see, I think that's what's happening. Single parent thing. And then, sometimes you get an epidemic of men who grow up and really got to adulthood. And it's amazing they got like a woman pregnant. They didn't really know it. They kind of fell into some stuff. So they not transmitting it. They not talking, you know. And the culture has changed. Like I said, the whole neighborhood thing, and how adults used to look out for the kids a little bit better, or because my father wasn't in my life when I was young, but I didn't miss it because where I lived, I had about 8, 9 fathers, and I learned something from each and every one of them, different aspects of just life. See, that's the one thing. The community back then, the culture back there, we transmitted life more. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have, we didn't have smartphones where we can just look up information. People talk. People, you had to have somebody who would just talk to you. I got a lot of cats on here call me Uncle Ron, man. I know this one dude, right? He was like that to me. And in fact, he was a cab driver, and he said this young boy tried to rob him. And after he finished talking to that boy, he said the dude was crying and said, I wish I had you as an uncle. And, that's kind of why I do what I do and stuff, man. Because even now, I'm the type, I'll grab a young thug and, keep him out of prison or something. I'll snatch him up and I'll talk to him because that's how it was. If I see young guys, sometimes I'll be like, yo, what's up, man? Ready to transmit that thing, that knowledge, because really what we call in game is just life. It's total life. I mean, and that's a part of life, how to interact with women, but also how to carry yourself as a man. I know, yeah, that's a DMV thing, that DC, Maryland, Virginia thing. We say carry yourself, but, it's just how you present yourself, how you walking, how you interact with another man, how you shake his hand and all of that. See, all of that's part of the game, too. How you defend yourself, fighting. If you're fighting and standing up for yourself and your integrity and, having to jack up somebody who's threatening your family. That was all part of it, everything. Now you see a little bit of it, there's some shows I check out. Friday Night Tykes. It's like Friday Night Tykes. One was set in Texas and one was set in Pennsylvania, like just following these little league football and stuff, right? And one thing I peeped on it, even more so than the football, because it's some basic kid stuff, but a lot of these men are really mentoring these young cats, these young guys. A lot of them are taking time and energy. They might be the only positive male figure that they say, but what they doing is transmitting some game to them too. That game of life. And I think overall we need to get back to it. Yeah, it might put somebody like me out of business, but if it's in the culture, I wouldn't mind being put out of business for that. You know what I mean? If more men, even if they ain't with their children, their son's mother or something, find a way to transmit it, even a little bit they know. Because one of the things I'm finding, a lot of guys, young guys tell me, they say their fathers ain't telling them anything. And I'm like, shit. Please, that's totally unlike my experience. I had total strangers telling me shit. And I just sat there and listened. Because one thing we did back in the day anyway, elders speak. As long as they ain't come off as too crazy. And when I say too crazy, like just crazy. If they came off like relatively intelligent, we listen. And we ain't think about like trying to challenge them on some shit, even if we disagree. We just listened to them. If we have a disagreement, we just kept it to ourselves. But I think, I think a lot of guys learn that. And you can learn from really anybody who's already been there. And I really do see that issue too. We got to get back to that. Get that back in the culture, man. Just take some young guys and just school them, man. You know what I'm saying? So anyway. Yeah, I know that's a bit of a ramble, but I wanted to get that out there. I wanted to talk about that, right? So anyway, right. I'm gonna get back with y'all. I'll holler at y'all later. Peace.